What do you get when you take Harry Potter and mix it with anime? Probably a lot of things, actually, but it's not this. It's definitely not this anime. Where was I going with that? This is something vile, something so impure that we might need to re-upload this video like the last one. It's got some stuff, some over-the-top stuff. So hold on to your crucifixes, say your prayers, ready your holy water, and let's dive right into it. The anime starts off in Hogwarts, except it doesn't. This is Ortija Academy of Magic, a place where young mage aspirants arrive to hone their magic skills. Ortija is the best school for magic, with students from all over the country arriving to study magic, and they have a magical blackboard. Okay. This is really important because they really stress this in a lot of scenes. It's hard to miss. Besides that, it's just a normal school with exams and notes and classes and stuff like that. Really just takes away the fun of being in a magic school, to be honest. Arthur Goldfielder is a student in Ortija who's in a bit of a dilemma. He's at the top of all of his other classes, like literally the best student around, but he just can't pass the summoning test for some reason. Apparently, all of the second-year students are required to have a being in contract with them called a familiar. The familiars will be an essential part of their day-to-day life. Students can literally form a contract with any kind of beings, from dragons to humans to literal beetles. If you got the skills, you can do it all. This exact skill is something Alto lacks. He just can't seem to summon anything, not even an ant, and the professors aren't having any of it. If he can't get a familiar by the next day, he is gonna have to repeat the first year. After a brief discussion with his professor, Alto comes out of the room worried. He had only received a one-day extension on the submission. Alto looks a bit troubled, but his friend, Lilia, is absolutely devastated. Yes, he definitely got feelings for him. That's apparent, but that much affection is a tad too crippy. Dude! Did I just say crippy? Dude, she's literally crying. What the frick, man? Alto heads straight out of there, as he should. The more he stays away from that crazy chick, the better. The nerd heads straight to the library and starts looking up new books to summon some being. He'd already tried summoning a beetle, so he thinks perhaps summoning something else would be better, maybe? No shirt, Sherlock. Why would you even consider summoning a beetle in the first place? That's just step one of being bullied in school. As Alto looks around, a book moves from the shelf and falls onto the ground, attracting his attention. Yes, the plot is just not caring. Alto looks at it, and it turns out to be a summoning book. Highly sus, but moving on. Alto goes to his dorm room and starts the incantation. Now, for guys who would want to replicate this, please pay attention. The results are, let's say, plump. Suddenly, as soon as the markings are made, a yellow light shines from below, and then after a drop of Alto's blood, a huge purple cloud surrounds the room, and from within appears a tall, beautiful, and incredibly naked woman. The woman has a huge tail and horns on her head, and a thick cloud surrounding just the right areas. We might still have to blur that, though. Sorry, Editor Coon. You do have it rough, don't you? The woman jumps onto him without permission on a borderline harassment-esque move. She pounces on the underage boy, telling him that she would do anything for him since he summoned her. Alto, however, thinks carefully and asks her to form a contract with him and become his familiar. Now, you may think that this is a Chad move, and Alto was no simp, but hear me out. And let me say this twice, slightly off sync, to really drill this point home.
She's a succubus. You don't summon a succubus without the intention of partaking in succubus behavior. Like that's Anti-Simp Academy lesson number two, dude.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
The woman agrees, and soon a golden light surrounds her, and she is bound to Alto for life. The woman was actually a demon named Vermeil, who seems a bit too aroused by Alto's mana, and she decides to take some for herself. Once the contract is formed, she pounces on the boy and forcefully kisses him, and drains every bit of mana that he had left. Vermeil explains that she was a demon, a very naughty demon, who had done a lot of naughty things, which is why she had been trapped inside of the book. Either that, or just some sick guy wanted to look at her pictures. Either way, only someone with extremely potent mana could have ever freed her, and after centuries of being trapped in a book, she feels thankful. Now that Alto is her master, the first order of business for him was to get her dressed. See, Alto's our guy. He knows we gotta keep this video monetized. Alto had brought his sister's clothes to his dorm for some reason, which is sus, but we're gonna let it slide since he's helping us out here, and would you look at that? It's a perfect fit! Kind of. The day was a long one, but thankfully, Alto had now managed to get himself a familiar, which meant that our guy was gonna pass the first year of school. The next day, Alto and Vermeil go to school, and after some discussion and, well, some obviously clear showing off, literally, Alto was given permission to attend the classes for the second year. In class, however, Vermeil sits on Alto's lap like all of those other small, cute familiars that the other students have, and it's cool with the teachers, but as for Lilia, oh, that girl just can't stand it. Familiar or not, she can't have anyone become so close to her crush. Especially if they look like that. So, right after class, Lilia confronts Alto about the woman that seems to be a bit too attached to him, and when Alto tries to explain that she was just a familiar, Lilia snaps. Thank you for the snap. The girl challenges Alto to a duel. For some reason, the school, just kinda allows this. A death match between two students and their familiars? There are no safety regulations, and on top of that, whole battle happens on a literal sky stadium. Not even mentioning, they stream it all over Twitch to earn some serious V-Bucks. Wow, I'm in the wrong school. The battle commences, and the wager being, the winner gets to have the loser do whatever they want once. That seems to be a very common wager in anime, really. Lilia starts with her familiar, a fairy-like thing, and blasts some magic at the two. However, despite the scale of this attack, it's barely able to phase Vermeil, who protects her master and then heads for her attack. Vermeil goes to Lilia and does... Wait, I'm not actually sure what she does, but it seems pretty naughty. I mean, she did say she was sealed in the book for being naughty, though, so we can't complain. Just keep it kind of family-friendly, please? Just like that, Alto had won, and for the one command that he gets over Lilia, he asks for her to get along with Vermeil. Yeah, the power of friendship. Now, Vermeil had actually transformed herself into a human so that no one in school could recognize her as a demon and freak out. But she could only fix the appearance part. At school, when she and Alto were heading to class, they realized that a dragon was coming towards them. No problem, though, as Vermeil flicks the dragon to oblivion. Actually, one problem. A human can't do that! What was the use of pretending to be a human if she kept on flexing her powers? Humans are weak, physically and mentally. Just look at the guys in the assembly line staring at her chest. They just can't help themselves, man. And by they, I mean me! She had to act like them if she wanted to pass as a human. Look, I'm sorry that I keep relating this to Harry Potter, but the principal is literally Dumbledore, and then there's the class where they learn about different plant monsters. It's uncanny. Sorry for being a nerd, okay? I was built this way. So the classes all go on with Vermeil still being a bit too close to Alto, and Lilia cringing and cruising under her breath. But when they get out of the class, that's when trouble begins again. Remember that dragon Vermeil flicked out of existence? Well, that turns out to be the familiar of a guy who was friends with some other guy named Rex. And oh boy, is Rex pissed that his friend's rogue familiar got home runned earlier. Lilia and Alto are a bit taken aback when Rex approaches them because it turns out he was a hotshot in school. he belonged to an exclusive group called the Dragon Riders, a group of elite students who had high-level dragons as their familiars, and Rex was a real big deal among these so-called Dragon Riders. While some might call Rex a Dragon Rider, I call him a fraud, because the guy literally has a dinosaur as a familiar. Last I checked, dinos aren't dragons. Hashtag change my mind. The group gets into a battle of sorts, but with Vermeil helping Alto, he manages to take down the literal so-called better mages of the school. Sorry if my burps are taking you out of your immersion. Rex is a good sport about his defeat and accepts it. Back in his dorm room, Alto talks with Vermeil, explaining how Rex showing up was precisely why he wanted her to act like a normal human and not bring attention to them. Vermeil casually changes the topic and asks him what he wanted to achieve in life. Alto almost immediately forgets the other issue and tells her that he wanted to be the best mage. There are 4 ranks of mages: apprentice, bronze, silver, and gold, and he wanted to beat all of them to become a platinum level mage, a secret 5th level, so don't tell me there are 4. Anyways, Vermeil seems impressed with her master's dreams and tells him that she would help him achieve the power that he needed. There was a catch though. If he wanted more power, just kisses wouldn't work. She needed him to give her more, a way to suck him dry. And I'm guessing he did give her that way, because the scene cuts off to showing their house. That didn't happen, right? That didn't actually happen.
Oh no, shut up and keep doing the recount.
Thanks, man. Wait, who the hell are you? When Alto returns back to school the next day, he seems a bit tired from all the things that happened back at home, but he doesn't have time. Dumbledore, and I'm just gonna keep calling him that, calls Alto, Lilia, and another student named Cheryl to his office so that he could choose one of them as the second-year class representative. All they had to do was go out to the mysterious forest and get some weird flower named the Fairy Flower. As they reach the outskirts of the forest, they are also accompanied by Marku, one of the nobleman's sons, and a student in the second year. Cheryl was apparently a steward to him for some reason, and also a student in the school, which makes their dynamic a bit too weird for my taste. But hey, at least it's not incest. Only one fairy flower blooms in the entire forest, and so getting it wouldn't be that easy. However, Murku rushes into the forest first with his familiar, a literal beetle. And the fact that he was failing in all 9 of his magic subjects checks out, as the dude immediately falls into a man-eating plant's mouth the second he enters the forest. To save her master, Cheryl stays behind while the other 2 move forward. They find the flower on top of a mountain, which is guarded by the mythical 3-headed dog Cerberus. Wait, just Cerberus chilling on a frackin' mountain? Really? Lilia has come prepared, though, and gulps down her invisibility potion, turning into that one chick from My Hero Academia. But the dogs aren't that stupid as to just let flying clothes pass by them, so she has to strip down. All the way down.
Yeah, we're gonna totally have to blur this one all the way, but you can just imagine that she has her invisibility potion perfected.
Lilia is too shy to walk, even though she is fracking invisible and somehow manages to get past Cerberus, whom Alto is forced to attack and distract. No problem, though, because Vermeil is there to save him. She launches an attack that even managed to scare me. And I know it's just an anime, but I mean, frick, what is that thing? Well, whatever it is, it manages to kill the dog, I guess, and Lilia recovers the flower. She, however, doesn't want the flower for herself, as she feels like she doesn't deserve it, having made Alto do all the work. Just as she hands him the flower, her invisibility potion wears off, and she involuntarily throws the flower to protect her honor. The flower then lands on Cheryl's hands, making her the indecisive winner of the contest. Elsewhere in school, the Dragon Riders leader, Chris, who is a girl, mind you, despite the name, and Chris is unisex, alright guys? She's super pissed that Rex was beaten by a literal second-year kid. And how does she decide to teach Rex a lesson for getting beaten?
Oh, let me guess. She beats them up.
Yeah, she beats them. Who the frick are you?
I'm your familiar, frick one. Now get used to it.
You're my familiar? Really? Why is my familiar so rude to me? You're not even attractive.
I didn't ask to be born, Dad.
Anyways, I think this is more resentment for him having a dinosaur familiar than him being beaten by Alto and Vermeil, but boy does she beat him badly.
The poor guy ends up getting admitted to the school nurse's office. The worst part about it, though, is that it's all legal in the school. Seriously, parents in this world just don't give a damn about their children, do they? Breed them in, just chug them into this murder machine school. Either come out of age or dead. Frick! Alto and Vermeil also go to visit Rex in the nurse's office and find out how Chris had been bullying him and had beaten him to a bloody pulp. Now, Rex's parents might think that's okay, but Alto can't have people beating up his friends. Oh, yeah, they're friends now, because Alto said he liked dinosaurs or something? I don't frackin' know. Alto then heads straight to challenge Chris, who is as cocky as ever. She thinks that she is superior to everyone just because she has a dragon familiar and has an average Karen mentality. Surprisingly enough, though, she is kinda tough. Her attacks are patterned and almost parallel that of Vermeil and Alto, and even with Vermeil's help, Alto finds it hard to break her defenses. This was, however, all a ruse! Vermeil and Alto actually were saving their mana for a huge attack, probably the one that instantly finished off a literal mythical dog earlier. The two of them get ready to fire off a huge magic crystal.
So the battle's getting pretty intense, right? And Vermeil and Alto are prepared to fire their final attack. Chris, who is once again a girl, that's okay. Girls can be called Chris, is also finally getting pumped up and fires her attack as well, but she was a wee bit too overconfident, and Alto manages to evade her attack and consequently put a literal frackin' crystal shard to her face and wins the match. Alto had won against all odds, and now he was famous. As soon as he gets down from the sky tower, which someone should really sue the school for safety regulations, he is flocked by girls and boys and familiars. Everyone can have a piece of Alto's. However, no matter how famous Alto is now, he can never beat the popularity of this cool professor of the school, Mr. Obsidian. Now, with a name like Mr. Obsidian, he's like the perfect teacher, and almost everyone, even Alto, looks up to him. He's like the defense against the dark arts teacher, and while those guys are always cool, they're always sus. Now look at the guy. He already looks like the Walmart version of Light from Death Note. Mark my words, this man's gotta be evil. His name's literally Obsidian. Obsidian maintains his cool version in front of them after witnessing the battle and advises Alto to be careful when he challenges people to a duel. I got my eyes on you, Obsidian. You ain't fooling me with your goody-goody two-shoes shenanigans nonsense. Chris is now humbled by her recent defeat with Alto and apologizes to Rex for beating him to a bloody pulp and sending him to the hospital. Yeah, she owes him a lot more than an apology, but Rex is a cool dude, so he lets it slide for some reason. Elsewhere in his dorm, once again Alto wakes up from getting molested by Vermeil, who is kissing him in his sleep. To top it all off, she's frackin' naked. Why not throw it in the mix? Which makes me believe she was planning on doing a lot more than kissing. And Alto is actually pissed this time. He's the conventional type who only wants to kiss someone he loves. Yeah, right. Then what was the last 20 kisses in the frackin' 3 episodes before this one? That's already 20 more than my kiss count.
Wait a minute.
Oh, so now you decide to show up.
Yeah, I was staying silent. You seem a lot more aggro than usual.
Don't worry about it, familiar. It's none of your business.
We're literally soul bonded. It kind of is.
Vermeil doesn't care. She's a demon after all, and tells Alto that she loves him if that's what he needs to hear to get the whole kiss thing going. Besides, she wasn't gonna not kiss him just because he was hesitant anyway. The next day, as always, Vermeil is glowing with the golden mana she sucked off of Alto, which makes him pretty grumpy. Grumpy wumply. Only goes to show that too much of anything can be even the slightest bit irritating.
Why were you looking at me when you were saying that?
Despite being a sexual assault victim, the most Alto cares about is the fact that Vermeil told him that she loved him last night, and so he goes to ask Obsidian if demons could ever fall in love with humans. For a well-educated man, Obsidian has quite the stereotypical view on demons and believes that demons only care about the mana that they steal. One could say that Obsidian was demon-phobic, although in this case he might actually have just a frackin' fear of demons. This troubles Alto even further, and as gullible as he is, he can't seem to forget it even when he is back at home. Vermeil figures out Alto's predicament and grabs him, buries him under her chest, and assures him of her undying love for him. Something similar happens to Obsidian when an underage student from his school comes to his office and expresses her undying love to him. And I called it. I frackin' knew Obsidian was a messed up guy because the dude grabs her by the waist and claims that he loves her too. As they are bound in a highly illegal embrace, Obsidian pulls out a syringe and plunges it into the girl. In his class with the plant professor, Alto and all of his friends are given the project to write a lengthy report on their familiars, about their height, weights, likes, dislikes, and all other characteristics. Not sure what this has to do with plants or botany at all, but the homework is given and Alto gets to it. The measurements begin at Alto's dorm room, and Vermeil wants every part of her measured, every inch and corner with as much precision as possible. And our editor will have to censor this, every inch and corner with as much precision as possible. That night, the student council members are notified that the same girl was actually found buried in ice in her dorm. This was already the 4th time such a thing had happened, and the student council members figured now is the time to do something about it. Took your lot 4 people's near-death experiences to realize that someone was behind all of this? Great detective work, frickers, but a 5th victim attack is happening literally right now. So get up off your lazily drawn frackin' butts and do something about it. Remember Chris? Well, she's all bloodied, and her familiar has been beaten to unconsciousness by who other than Rex. Well, looks like he didn't forgive her after all. Back when Rex had first summoned his familiar, a literal egg. Wait, you can summon eggs? Is there a familiar drive-through? Oh, yes, sir, I'll take 1 succubus.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Brody, summon a familiar or is morning breakfast?
Breakfast implies that it's in the morning.
Anyways, back when Rex had first summoned a huge egg, Chris was there as well, and the two were quite good friends back then. But puberty hit, and Chris never quite got out of her tomboy phase. Probably because her parents gave her that name.
What's wrong with Chris, man?
Now she's a literal jerk to everyone around her. Well, until Alto beat her, and now Rex is beating her up. So that's bullying 101. As Alto and Vermeil are going around shopping, one of Rex's followers rushes to them asking for their help. They are too late to get to the scene, however, as Chris is already badly beaten up by Rex, who seems to be acting a little too sus. Rex has probably been smoking some Snoop Dogg's rare collections, and with the reddest eyes ever, beats up Chris again and again as she wails helplessly. Someone do something. He tosses her around like a plaything before he notices Alto and his gang and turns his attention toward them. Rex and his familiar get up ready to fight Alto when suddenly a fair-haired lady rushes to the scene. She elegantly removes the sword from its sheath and slices through the possessed man. Not sure how that works, but I stopped questioning anime a long time ago. The girl, who is the student council president, gracefully slices the man back to his senses. But don't get fooled by her skill with that sword. The girl is as arrogant and rude as Chris when it comes to anything else. Immediately after finishing off Rex, she comes to an injured Chris to troll her for losing to such a weak opponent. I would feel sad for her, but Chris kind of deserves it, to be honest. Moving back to the main issue at hand, though, someone was clearly doing all this, and that someone was Obsidian. Spoiler alert, I don't frackin' care. He's too much of a goody-goody-good two-shoes on the outside for people to suspect him, though. Vermeil, however, is not a person, and she immediately realizes that Obsidian was going frackin' too far. She'd already noticed him acting suspect when Alto was talking to him, so the next day, as Alto heads to the preparations of his bronze mage exam with Lilia, she goes out to confront Mr. Obsidian. As always, Obsidian acts like he's innocent and he's just a normal teacher, but Vermeil tells him to cut the act. She was no fool, but she wasn't a hero either. She doesn't care if he goes around with the lesser demon familiar of his. And yes, Obsidian apparently has that. Don't the teacher selection committees ask for information about familiars before selecting the teachers for their children? What? Poo-poo doo-doo brain. Vermeil tells him that he can have whatever fun he wants with his lesser demon, but she ain't gonna let him come anywhere near Alto. Obsidian smiles. Vermeil might have been a demon, but the real demon mind was him. Did I say that right? We're gonna go with it. He never wanted to do anything with the students. He just wanted to capture an actual demon and rule the world. Maybe. I actually don't know what his motivations are. They're really unclear. Maybe he wanted to have a cool slave who wanted to suck his mana off or something. Yeah, actually, that's probably it. As Vermeil turns away from the sick man, he plunges the same serum into Vermeil. Dark clouds start to form and ominous music starts to play as Vermeil transforms into her true demon form. Haha, now, all of you frickers simping over her in the comments section, you wouldn't want this thing to suck your mana, now would you?
Are you sure about that?
The environment around the whole school changes and everyone seems to know this, but not everyone seems to care. The student council president lady and Chris rush out of their meeting. The president is quickly apprehended by Obsidian's lesser demon from joining the fight, because the anime wanted to make the episode longer, while Alto and Lilia race to the scene as well. Obsidian proudly explains what he had done to Alto as he uses what little magic skill he has to chain Vermeil around her neck. What he doesn't realize is that Vermeil is way too powerful for him to handle, as the chains quickly break and Vermeil, in her full-on demon mode, lunges to finish off the professor. Alto, for no reason whatsoever, jumps in between them, and Vermeil's demon fists plunge into Alto's heart, creating a hole the size of the plot holes in this anime. Surely he was dead, right? Wasn't he? Well, if you've watched any kind of anime ever, the greatest power in the world isn't love or friendship, it's plot armor. After absolutely violating Alto's body, not sexually but physically this time, Vermeil comes to her senses and regrets falling into the trap Obsidian had placed. She comes back to her normal sexy self and kisses Alto, pouring her own demon mana into him this time, magically closing the gaping hole in his body and bringing him effectively back to life. Obsidian, who has probably been pushed around a lot already by the so-called power of friendship, has had enough of it. He then reveals his ace in the hole, a monster-human hybrid. He goes into full-on classic anime villain mode, proudly announcing his previous plans and how they had changed because of the new situation. He also reveals the secret of his power and his strengths. At this point, I'm not even disappointed in him. I'm just sad. Sad that despite looking like light, this man is an absolute frackin' dumbass. Vermeil flies off and punches the giant hybrid demon body in half, and then when Obsidian tries to run away, he is apprehended by Chris. The fight is over in a matter of seconds, and might have been over quicker if Obsidian didn't waste the time explaining his stupid motivations and plans. A waste of my frackin' Sunday.
Okay, so...
Either way, life goes back to normal now. The victims are nursed back to health, and Obsidian is taken to the Nether. However, Vermeil seems to be a bit troubled after all that. When Alto asks her about it, she tells him that she had actually connected her mana with his, meaning that if he died, she would die. A soul bond. Alto is visibly angry at what she had done. She wasn't supposed to do something so drastic to just save a mere human. She was a demon, for Satan's sake.
Ha! Because she's a demon.
All Vermeil had to say that she was sorry for what had happened, and perhaps it was best if they parted ways once her mana was fully fused with him. She regrets ever thinking that demons and humans could get together and live in peace, making Alto even more angry. So angry, in fact, that he kisses her right on the lip. Yep, that's the way to express anger. Imagine how many wars could have been stopped if getting angry just meant more kissing. Anyways, Alto tells her that he would be by her side till the very end and rushes out flushed. Alright, well, that's about as much romantic gooey stuff I can digest in one episode before I pass out. Oh, now that Vermeil has actually almost killed Alto earlier, she has started to have a lot of doubts about herself. She thinks that she doesn't deserve to get along with humans, and yeah, we did this whole bit in the last episode, but it looks like she still hasn't gotten over it. She is so stressed out that she doesn't even go to school with Alto the next day. At school, the environment is gloomy. Literally, every single girl is sad that their sexy teacher, Obsidian, turned out to be an ugly demon-fused hybrid monster thingy who was evil. The girls are distraught and can't seem to look up from their desks. The boys, on the other hand, are sad that their favorite teacher, eye freshener Vermeil, and her huge personality, is absent.
Huh. Personality. You ain't slick, son.
They curse Alto for making her sick or whatever it was that he had done to make her miss class. Alto explains that Vermeil was just taking her time and not feeling well and would be back very soon. Vermeil, on the other hand, is somewhere by the shore of the ocean, watching the sunset like she's some classic heroine from an Oscar-winning drama movie. Lilia happens to stumble by the place because why not, and notices Vermeil all sad and gloomy. By now, Lilia too knew that Vermeil was a demon and figures that perhaps this is what was making Vermeil sad. The fact that she was a demon? Oh no, I'm a demon! Oh no, I'm white!
Oh no, you're still breathing!
She confronts Vermeil, who, as Lilia predicted, is sulking about how her being a demon is going to get her distant from Alto. Okay, now, yeah, that makes sense, actually.
You know, you really need to stop assuming things before you know the full context.
Oh, you need to stop talking.
You need to stop breathing. Have I not just made that point clear?
Lilia then proceeds to give Vermeil the one lesson on equality that she had seemingly forgotten. It didn't matter what race, color, or generation you were. As long as you were a good person, or a demon even, you are good to go, and no one can tell you what you do or do not deserve. Something about that didn't sit right with me.
You don't sit right.
That wasn't even remotely clever.
No, I'm merely stating a fact. You need to stop slouching.
Ooh, posture check.
What would you do without me?
Apparently this 30-second rant was enough for Vermeil to bring her back to her senses, and the demon happily returns back to her home. At home, Alto is waiting for her to return, and is glad to finally see her back to her 100% form once more. And you know what that means. More unethical kissing, and probably even more than that, because the scene always cuts to the outside of the house with Alto screaming. There is definitely more than kissing happening in that house, and hold on a second, what's the age gap here?
Too much, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, Alto's like 14, Vermeil is like infinity. But who cares about that? The next day arrives, and now Vermeil is ready to return back to school. Problem is, her outfit is a little too revealing around the chest. I'm sure none of the boys would complain. But the teachers can't have their students getting distracted in class, so they gave her another set of uniforms, which is yet again too revealing around the chest, but what the frick is gonna fit her anyway?
A barrel?
Well, without a barrel in tow, the duo head to school without figuring out that problem. Now, you're all probably asking yourself, for all this time comparing the anime to Harry Potter, where the heck is Voldemort, the villain? Turns out, there is a Voldemort too, but the guy is just too weak.
Bro, you only referenced Harry Potter in the first episode, and I doubt anyone remembers that at this point.
The bald dude jumps into battle, but is beaten by some lame-o frickwads. Huh, would you look at that? He is Voldemort.
Ooh.
Anyways, the two lame kids are actually Lolite and Heliodor. What? Don't get confused by their seemingly unpronounceable names. These guys are the bad guys who seem to have been involved with the Obsidian case as well. So keep an eye out for them to appear in the next few episodes and do some more lame stuff until the climax happens. Back at school, Alto and Vermeil are chilling in class like they always do, when suddenly the same fair-haired lady, aka the school student council president, arrives in the room with her gang. She, in the most polite way ever, asks Alto and Vermeil to follow them to the student council room. There, her gang immediately puts a frackin' sword to Alto's neck and makes him admit that Vermeil was actually a demon. Then they start blackmailing the poor dude and practically force him to help them. They had also apparently realized that there were some really powerful mages behind Obsidian's actions. Basically, the lame dude and the other chick from earlier who beat Voldemort to a pulp were actually platinum-level mages. The student council president asks Alto to become a part of the student council, and he is forced to agree. Now, it is never a good idea to get a demon involved with the student council and stuff, but the president is willing to take the chance. Who the perpetrators were was still a mystery. All we know about them is that they're frackin' powerful. So having a demon on their side would be an advantage against the mages. Either way, Alto has no way to intervene or give his decision. He's just along for the ride. And that is the story of how Alto and Vermeil got into the student council. Honestly, his friends are just as confused as I am, but Alto is the main character, so who's gonna argue? Later, Vermeil reveals why she didn't fight back or stop the student council members when they literally put a sword in her master's face. She tells him that the president seems to be really tough, and she was serious about killing Alto, which is why she didn't move a muscle. She basically chickened out. Alto, however, doesn't seem to care that he was almost killed. He was more worried that he couldn't protect Vermeil's identity as a demon. Dude, she literally blew half a demon in the last episode. She doesn't need your protection. Alto is just dropping lower and lower in the simp tier. Or does that mean he's climbing?
Does it matter? Does it really matter?
Well, I mean...
No. The answer's no.
Well, what does matter, Familiar, is that Vermeil is actually really pleased with Alto's simping and decides to give him a reward, which he probably doesn't want. You guessed it. Cut to the outside of the house. Elsewhere, the villain dude and her friend goes to meet up with another one of their accomplices who is staring down at their main weapon, a huge kraken thingy. The new character, Kahakumiya, asks Lolito if he managed to convince the strongest of the platinum mages to join their cause.
Kahuna who?
Lolito had done the job, but there was one problem. In the process of persuading the man, he may have stopped his breathing. Yeah, the guy was dead. That was a slight issue, but Lolito had other things to deal with. Specifically, with the mess Obsidian had left behind. Alto and Vermeil. Later that night, Alto wakes up in a strange room, and in his vision, sees a young Vermeil crying. Even though the girl is so literally Vermeil, Alto just can't seem to recognize her. He then turns around and sees a white spirit staring at him, and yes, the spirit was a really perky woman, because that's just how this anime deals with drawing women. I mean, that's everything.
What? How did you even make that noise?
The spirit comes to Alto and starts talking about how there are two paths before him. One leading to peace without vermeil, and the one leading to chaos.
With vermeil?
That part's unclear.
Of course it is.
Like every other oracle that has ever existed, the spirit disappears and Alto wakes up. It was all a dream. Or was it? Alto wakes up to a naked vermeil, yes that's the norm now, and Alto lies next to her and shares his concerns about the exam. This gives Vermeil another opportunity to
It's okay, slow down, you can do it.
This gives Vermeil another opportunity to suck him off. And by suck him off, I mean suck it.
Yes, keep going.
His mana.
Oh!
And every time she sucks him off, that he gets stronger, so that's exactly what she does.
Maximum suck it!
Well, she does a lot more than kissing, but let's keep this family friendly, huh? The day of the exam finally arrives, and Alto once again cross-checks everything that he needs. A book, pens, some paper, a literal succubus. Seems like he's well prepared. Suddenly, his eyes fall on the book where Vermeil was captured, and he takes it with him too. He can't read the book, nor does it match his syllabus, but Alto carries it anyway for no frickin' reason. Unless maybe this leads to something later on. Anyways, after getting everything ready, Alto and Vermeil set out for the exam. The exams are taking place in a different school other than Ortega, and Alto and his friends are not quite liking it. Their school was usually the one that brought in the best results in exams, so the other schools were a bit jealous. A lot of students have arrived here, and a lot of them are going to fail. For some weird reason, they were all going to have their practicals before their written exams, so only the ones who passed the practical exams were going to enter the written ones. It's a magic school. Why am I questioning things? Alto and his friends, alongside all the weaklings of the other trash schools, are gathered in a large hall where a crystal ball stands in the middle. Soon, a bearded cool dude wannabe professor arrives alongside his assistant and explains the rules of this practical exam. All they had to do was come up to the stage and light the fire that was inside the crystal by using their mana. Simple, right?
Let me guess, it's not
wrong! It's the simple nature of the test that gets students confused. One dude shows up flexing his muscles and gets knocked out. Another guy appears with a bear and they both push like they're pushing a baby out of them, and yet the flame does not grow. Likewise, a lot of the students come and fail until it's Lilia's turn. She had managed to crack the code to the exam. Everyone was focusing on the crystal, when the real trick was to focus on the flame. Wow! That wasn't deep at all! Once Lilia cracked the code, even the guy with a freaking beetle as a familiar passes the exam. There's also a couple of students from other schools who learned the trick, including a random punk who has a bit of a vendetta against the Ortega school students. Finally, Alto's turn arrives, and he gets it on the spot. The nerd analyzes the crystal like an FBI agent and manages to understand how the crystal actually worked. He finds the spot where all his mana could be efficiently channeled into the crystal fire and grow the flame. But why make it that easy? He finds the best spot for channeling the mana and then skips that spot after checking it out and goes to the worst spot and starts throwing in his mana. He ends up putting so much mana into the fire that the entire crystal cracks and breaks, throwing shards of really sharp glass pieces at the students all around. But by anime logic, no one is injured and Alto had passed the exam. After a brief kissing session with Vermeil to replenish his mana, although mana isn't even needed for a written test, Alto arrives barely in the nick of time for it. A punk from another school was assigned to sit next to Alto in the exam, but unfortunately for him, his character was not so important to the storyline, so he gets instantly killed in the school bathroom by Lowlight, who takes his place in the exam hall next to Alto. Something sus was about to happen, but we won't find that out in this episode. That's where we're gonna leave it off today, cappers. If y'all liked it, you already know what to do. Summon the like button and then hit it.